If you knew what your true yes was and what your true no was in all areas of your life, would you be able to choose faster and easier? What futures would those choices create? Everyone is capable of connecting to their bodies in a way to have more exuberant and joyful living now and in the future. Now, here is your host of Choosing a Different Future with Siris.
Hi everyone, I'm Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo. Thank you everyone for listening in today. Today's topic is being a space of possibility with men. Not with them, not at them, not for them, with them. That's a key thing. So I'm Siris, like I said, I'm a body and relationship coach, which basically means that I speak to your body, connect with my body, and then if you'd like to communicate better and enjoy other people's bodies and your interactions with them more, then I'm your gal. And then on top of that, I'm also a family and child coach. I'm professionally trained as a speech and language pathologist, learning behavioral specialist, and feeding therapist. But with the family and child coaching, I get to use all of that and also look at the gifts and strengths of each member of the family so that everyone can thrive. And then lastly, I'm the creator of the Living and Dying Body Process, an energetic body process that includes a lot of different hand movements and activating different energies within bodies so that you have exuberant living your way. And that could be for you as an individual. Hopefully you're including yourself in your life. And then also with other people, which is going to be right on theme today in our discussion about being a space of possibility with men. We have some upcoming events I want to make sure that you know about. We have our next awakening class. If you are interested in the living and dying body process and learning about it, it's great for people who are givers and healers and those that truly want to connect and educate other people, those that love bodies and are aware of bodies. And our next class is Friday, September 23rd. The theme of that one, let me look at my notes. The theme of that one is opening the doors to greater living. And then we have one in November that we're considering that's about gratitude for coming home to the body that you're creating, to the life that you're creating. And then we're going to also have another class in January where we're setting the tone for 2023. Yeah, gosh, it's already here. We started last week the Exuberantly You in Relationships series, an 8-part series. It was a phenomenal start. Thank you to each and every one of you who made it so great. So many great questions and input, so many great aha moments. And one of the things that we did, the first 2 calls that were last week are complimentary, and you can still receive the replays of those first 2 calls. This upcoming week onward, it's all for the people that are truly choosing the entire series that would really like to be all of themselves in their relationships and communicate more effectively. But those first 2 calls were setting the stage for success and communication with your body in relationships. And then the second call after that was about body connection and body awareness. So really knowing your body's voice and what brings it pleasure, what makes it easier for you to have a voice in different interactions in all types of relationships. And so we had some really great questions about how to do that and in what scenarios that might be a little tricky in those first 2 calls. So thank you again for everybody, and hopefully you're going to be joining us for the rest of the series. Now, today's topic is being a space of possibility with men. There's a lot of choice with that, and I think I'm going to keep slipping up a little bit because choice is a big piece for all of us. So I'm going to read the description for this episode, and I really care about this topic a lot, and I'll tell you in a moment why. So, do you love men? Would you like to create a space with them and all of you? What if you could have a way of speaking to the space of possibilities with them beyond spoken words? There has been an interesting narrative going on about men for a long time, from women and also from other men, that has been influenced by generational lies, institutional manipulation, and personal experiences that have been eclipsing what is possible. if you're someone who would like to not just get along with them, have sex with them, marry them, and would instead like to go beyond that to receiving with them, raising them, and empowering them, thriving with them without the weight of what people have considered or chosen before, this is the episode for you. So I'm going to be getting into it today. We're going to consider how we're currently speaking about and for men, and get clear on what futures those choices, there's that word again, choices, are creating so that we can open the door to a greater space of possibilities for us all. And many of you got the call knowing what doors to open and which to close. If you haven't checked that episode out, I definitely recommend it. This complements that episode really well. Okay. This topic is really important to me because I love men. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love women too. I know it's possible to love them both. And I don't actually consider it just to be two options, but we're not going to get into that discussion right now. I don't actually consider it to be only two genders that are the only options. Hi to all my non-binary friends out there. And so for me, it's also really important because I work with kids. And since I'm in the field that I'm in, where I'm working with a lot of people that have special abilities and special needs, different diagnoses, they're predominantly young boys. These diagnoses occur in young boys more than young girls. I definitely have young girls on my caseload as well. And so I'm very cognizant of how they're being spoken to and how they're being spoken about, not just because of their learning differences and their communication differences, but also because I'd like them to be men that they would like to be, the kind of men they would like to be, but also men that contribute to the type of future that I would like to have, to the world that I would like to live in. And so if we're aware of how we speak about them and with them, we actually get to contribute through our choices to those futures, to all those different infinite futures. I love that comment in the chat. Amazing. Yes, it's our choices can be really amazing. We're really powerful with this. So I'd really love to acknowledge a really good friend of mine. Hi, Derek. I did not know that I was different with how I interact with men, how I talk about them, how I talk with them until probably my 30s. And I realized that it's also, I evolved in my journey with men as well, over, the decades and things like that. And one of the things that struck me was, I can't tell you how many times I would hear, wow, so you're really different. And I heard that with so many different things. I didn't really apply it to me with men until it kept coming up in dates and in interactions with my guy friends, or they would tell me about their girlfriends and their partners, and I would say something and they're like, oh, but Siris, but you're different. This doesn't apply to you. And I'm like, but I'm a woman and you're talking about women. So wouldn't we have some commonalities? And there are some, and sometimes I could help them get a different perspective and see what their partners, girlfriends were thinking about. And sometimes I would be like, I don't even understand what this person is doing, because obviously you as a guy and the type of guy that you are require this. So they would do that and talk to you in that way for what reason? So it kind of was like this, like, okay, after, 20, 30 times of this coming up, I was like, all right, maybe I should look at this. So I was visiting my friend Derek, and this was back in, I think, fall of 2017. I had just moved to Savannah, Georgia. I was having a hard time socially, and I went and visited him in Michigan, and it's beautiful in Michigan in the fall. If you haven't been, I highly recommend. It's gorgeous. And at one point, we were cooking or washing dishes or something. He's an amazing cook. He's been cooking food for me all weekend. I went there as a kind of retreat to meditate and be and reset. And he's been a good friend for years. And I turned to him and I was like, I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm just wondering, like, what do I contribute to your life? Like, I know I'm awesome. there's a lot to choose from. And I literally was just like really irreverent about it. I was like, okay, there's a lot of awesome here, but what out of all this awesome is really contributing to you? And he looked at me like I was an idiot. You know, those friends, like, duh, you should know this already, right? I was like, just help me out here. You know, tell me what's going on. Like, well, how do I contribute to you? And he said, well, you provide insight. You help me see things from a different perspective that I wouldn't otherwise think about. You expose me to ideas and points of views that I wouldn't necessarily be exposed to if it wasn't for you. You help me talk things through and you don't judge me. And I can't tell you how much I'm so grateful for that, because both a lot of men and women that are good friends of mine still judge me for my like idiosyncrasies, my little quirks. And you don't. You're like, if anything, you don't just not judge me, but you like love that about me. And I just started crying. I was like, oh, okay, that's so nice. And then I was like, I took it in, and I think I maybe came back after wiping my face and all that. And then I was like, well, do you know what you contribute to my life? And he had a total blank stare, but it was different than for me when I was just curious and asking. He really seemed to not even know that he was a gift. He didn't even seem to realize that he was contributing to me just as much as I was contributing to him. He couldn't find the words to say it. And it struck me. And I did mention to him all these different ways, just thinking about it, you know. So grateful for him. So grateful for the men in my life. And it was one of those moments where it really hit me. Wow, I wonder if the men in my life truly know that they're a gift, that I care about them. And this is, to give you some context, this is around when Me Too was flourishing, and when a lot of people were saying that all men are horrible and they're violators and they don't know anything about consent in women's bodies and how they communicate and things like that. And I definitely agree that there are a lot of them that were totally oblivious or really, you know, doing some really not okay things. And I was also concerned for the men that were allies, that had been allies to me, like my friend Derek, like so many friends, that they weren't like that. They were aware of these things, and they were being bundled up with all of these other men that were rapists and abusers and gaslighting, and were using power hierarchies in corporate jobs to manipulate and control. And that wasn't the majority of my experience. Don't get me wrong. I've definitely had some super sketchy, horrible experiences, and maybe I can talk about that later on. But I'd really like us to talk today about being a space of possibility. So if you're someone who is teaching men, if you're someone who's raising men, if you're someone who actually loves men, but maybe aren't quite sure of how to communicate with them effectively, this is going to be an episode that you really want to buckle up and lean into, because I'm going to give you some really important tips that I've learned from a really different way of interacting with men that I did with these men of my life. And I started to look at this. I started to look at, well, if I'd like to be a better mediator and I'd like to be a better lover and partner and friend, then I need to see how the men in my life already see me and see their lives and themselves, and put myself in their position a little bit more. So I'm really excited about this conversation. I think that this is something that is really valuable to each and every one of us if we have men that we care about in our lives, and if we'd like to actually be a space with them that includes us, and what is possible. So that's my cue for our first break. When we return, we will continue to discuss how to be a different space and of possibility with men. You're listening to Choosing a Different Future show with Siris, myself, Siris, on the Inspired Choices Network. When we return, we will continue to talk about being a space of possibility with men. We'll be right back.
Most people haven't been taught how to listen and partner with their bodies in order to create lives that include clarity, pleasure, ease, and connection. Tuning in to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and resources on how to use your awareness of bodies and energy to your advantage. Siris is a family and child coach and therapeutic energy worker who will guide you to get clear and acknowledge what's brilliant, magical, and a gift about you.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Choosing a Different Future show with Siris. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Connect with Siris through her website, empoweringlightlanguage.com, or send an email to empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo on Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And today our show topic is being a space of possibility with men. So before we went on break, we were discussing how there may be men in our lives that don't know they're a gift to us, and that we should really consider more and be aware of how we're talking about men and for men. And if we want to continue to do it in that same way, or maybe choose something else. So before I forget, I want to make sure that you are checking us out on all the different platforms. Anywhere that there's a podcast or TV, you can find us. We're on 450 different platforms now. Super excited about that. So make sure to tell your friends and family that would benefit from this discussion and from the other episodes on our show. Also, you can check out any past episodes on the inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Click podcasts, click Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And you can also check out past seasons at choosingadifferentfuture.com. So one of the things that I did when I had this conversation with my friend Derek that I mentioned before the break, that made me realize, whoa, there may be men in my life that don't realize they're a gift to me. They're getting sent all these messages, including a particularly problematic one that I've mentioned in the past, in past episodes, that I do not like, that when this is being said about people with special needs as well, is that the world would be a better place without men. Maybe you know people that have said that. Maybe in a moment of frustration and anger, you've even thought this or said this yourself. And I'd really like us to look at that. Would the world really be a better place without men? And if you have fathers, if you have sons, if you have partners, and you have this point of view, well, what future does that create? Oh, there'd be less war without men. There'd be less violence. There'd be less whatever, fill in the blank. I'm not sure that's true. Have you seen Mean Girls? Have you seen, the telenovelas and all these different things and the behind the scenes machinations, very Machiavellian, that some of the women do? And also there are great women out there that aren't doing that. So we don't like it as women when men or anyone says all women are this. We don't like that. And yet for some people, they don't have any problem doing the same thing to men. Oh, all men are this. Well, if that doesn't work for us, is that actually accurate for men? And I don't believe it is. So what I went and I did is I wrote a letter to about 20 different men in my life. And more than half of them agreed to sit down and talk with me about what it was for them to be a man and our relationship. And it was great timing because it was around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. And I recorded it and I gave them the recording as like a gift, because we ended up having these beautiful, vulnerable conversations. And they got to ask me questions and I got to ask them questions that I'd never asked and they'd never asked before. And it created this beautiful space. It's still something I think of with such fondness and that they still reference when we talk now. And it created and opened a door. Speaking of that, knowing what doors to open and what to close episode that we did before, it opened a door to us having a greater connection, us trusting ourselves even more individually and trusting each other. And then on top of that, it also allowed them to start seeing themselves differently and actually see that they are a contribution to not just me, but to the world. And for many of them, I didn't realize how much they needed that. And so it's this beautiful gift. So before you go ahead and you try to have these conversations with the men in your lives, and I definitely would recommend doing this, even if you've had maybe some of these vulnerable conversations before, I suspect you haven't asked the questions that I'm going to recommend for you to ask today. I'm going to just mention a couple, not too many. But before you go and you have these conversations, to be a space of possibility with them, certain things are required. You need to be willing to be vulnerable, like truly vulnerable with yourself and your body. If you haven't looked at how you connect with your body and your body's voice, definitely recommend the Exuberantly You in Relationships call series that we mentioned, or a consultation with me to know how you uniquely connect with your body and what your body's voice is, because everybody's voice is different. But this level of vulnerability that you actually get to perceive what is being said underneath the words and not relying on just the verbal. Because a lot of guys, they communicate through their bodies and through gestures and expressions, and they show vulnerability differently than women. But women, we're looking for how we show vulnerability. And so when we don't see that, we don't always recognize that the men in our lives are actually trying or being vulnerable with us. So when we're really willing to be vulnerable with our bodies, we start to expand and into our awareness more and realize, oh, wait, maybe there's a different space here and there is a different softening in this person's world, and he's trying to let me in and I'm not giving him credit for that potentially. Some of us do give credit, okay? I'm very honored to have a lot of female friends, female identifying friends, and non-binary friends that recognize that not all men are any one way, and also recognize that there is a different space of possibility with them, that if we are willing to lean in and recognize, what am I going into this situation, this conversation, this event, what outcome am I looking for? That's the other thing. It's not just me that can be a different space of possibility with men. You can as well. And I can point to many other examples of other people that I know that are this. So I'm not an exception. My friends are an exception, and all of us can work on this and develop this. So if you go into a situation and you look at, well, what outcome am I looking for? And do I have any hidden agendas here? That's also a really important question, because a lot of us don't recognize that we may be going into a situation and we think that we're open to their point of view and their opinion. And maybe they are, but they don't realize that given how we are expressing ourselves, how we're asking the questions, what energy we're coming at them with. And then the third thing is we need to be aware of, and this is something that I learned from Michael Burnoff, as to how to frame it, because I knew this a little bit. And then I took some classes in the last couple of months with Michael Burnoff. And Michael, wherever you are in the world, hi and thank you. Is he taught me how to be aware of my own state, what the state I am in with my body, mental state, emotional state, and what the other person's state is. So it's not just about me, but I'm going to start with me. What's my state? And then also, what state is the other person in? Are they tired? Are they energized? Are they in a learning state? Are they in a really open, hey, how's it going state? Are they aroused? Are they distracted? I need to be aware of that and on both ends before I go into these different situations. And this takes practice, right? This is something that we're all can get better and better at. And so when you have these three key ingredients, you can go in and have these interactions that are more effective. You can communicate more effectively with them. And I can't get into all the different possible scenarios in which you can have conversations and interactions with men. If you have a specific scenario that you're struggling with, I invite you to schedule a consultation session with me. We can talk through that and you'll walk away right away with personalized tools. But what I can tell you is that if you have these three ingredients, these three ways of being with men before you go in and checking in with yourself, and you have that more and more strong and clear, it's going to be more your default than maybe what you've been doing that hasn't been as effective so far. So when you have these three ingredients, and actually, you know what? I'm going to speak a little bit more about having a certain outcome or agenda. I realize that sometimes we go into a situation. I'm going to read from my notes. There's these four states, these four agendas that can be at play that some people may not realize is going on, that can impact how they can or cannot be an effective space of possibility with men. So let's set up the scenario. Let's say you're asking a man for their opinion. And it doesn't matter if you're a straight woman, if you're a gay man, if you're a non-binary person, if you're an educator, if you're a parent, you're approaching a young boy or a man and you'd like their opinion about something. So you're going to be vulnerable, right? Check in with yourself, expand, lower your barriers. You're going to see if what their state is, what your state is in, and then you're going to see, well, what do I have any hidden agendas here? And one of them, there's four. One of them that you might have is you may already have decided something, and this is called the dismissive agenda. So you may have already decided what you want, what they should think, and you just want them to validate and agree with you. So that's dismissive. It's not really, you're asking for their opinion, but you don't actually care about what it is. But the words you're saying is that you care, but you actually don't. And we all know those very cliched examples of like, oh, do I look cute in this dress? And you don't really want them to tell you how you look. You want them to tell you, I'm beautiful. Oh my gosh, you look so great in that. That is super flattering. Your butt looks so awesome, right? You don't want them to be like, oh, well, is there another option? That color just makes you look pale. Or we all know those people that do that, okay? So that's the dismissive. Then there is the diluted agenda. The diluted agenda is somebody, again, doesn't matter who you are, that goes in and asks a man or a young boy for their opinion about something. And then I'm going to look at my notes for this one too, because I want to make sure that this one and the third one can be kind of confused. And I want this to be really clear for each and every one of you. So it is the diluted agenda is when you have the point of view and then you want them to say certain things so that you can convince them of your point of view. So it's similar to the first one where you kind of don't really care, but you want to hear something that they say so you can kind of have this banter back and forth. But at the end of the day, you want them to still agree with you, all right? And say what you want them to say in the way that you want them to say it. And these are important, not just if you actually have this point of view. Most of the people that come to me are people that realize that these might be happening unconsciously and they want to change it, or they don't have these agendas at all, but people are telling them, you don't care what I think, or you just want to argue with me. But that's actually not their agenda and their point of view, but they're not sure how to change their language and how they show up so that the people that they're interacting with know that they care and that they really genuinely want to know what they think. And so this could be something that's actually running or a perceived agenda. Okay. Let's stop there. Those are 2 out of the 4. Let's go into our next break. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. It's time for our second break. When we return, we're going to talk more about these agendas that may be running that prevent us from having a space of possibility with men. You are listening to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, myself, Siris, on the Inspired Choices Network. When we return, we will continue to discuss being a space of possibility with men. We'll be right back.
Most people haven't been taught how to listen and partner with their bodies in order to create lives that include clarity, pleasure, ease, and connection. Tuning in to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and resources on how to use your awareness of bodies and energy to your advantage. Siris is a family and child coach and therapeutic energy worker who will guide you to get clear and acknowledge what's brilliant, magical, and a gift about you.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Choosing a Different Future show with Siris. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Connect with Siris through her website, empoweringlightlanguage.com, or send an email to empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo on Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And today our show topic is being a different possibility, being a space of possibility. Yes, being a space of possibility with men. So before we went on break, we were talking about the different agendas that we might be having, hidden agendas even from ourselves, that might be running when we're trying to communicate and be a space of possibility with men. Some of these agendas are ones that are unconsciously running, and some of them may be what we've been told other people think is happening that isn't actually happening. But then we need to work on our communication, our language, and how we show up, the state that we're in when we're having these conversations with men, when we're having these interactions with them, so that they don't misconstrue what we'd like to create with them. Okay. So we talked about the first two. I'm going to just go over them really quickly. There is dismissive, which is when you've already decided what you want them to say and think, and you don't really care about their opinion. And then there's the diluted agenda, when you go into an interaction and you'd like to have what you consider a discussion, but you really just want them to agree with you over time. You're going to kind of wrangle them in and convince them of your point of view. And then there's the third agenda that may be running, or maybe you're sending out the message that this is your agenda when it may not actually be the case. And it's the elusive agenda. It's when you're genuinely interested in the man or young boy's point of view. And there may be a couple of reasons why he can't actually tell you what it is. Maybe he doesn't know yet what his opinion is yet. Maybe it's that he doesn't have a strong preference. It could also be that he's unsure that he can actually voice what his opinion is, perhaps because of past experiences with you or past experiences with other people. And so all of this can go on, but they are actually invested and they care and they would like to give their opinion. They just might not be sure how to do that yet. That's the elusive one. Okay. And so the person that's asking is genuinely interested in that, but then these other factors may be at play. And then the last agenda is the endearing agenda. I love this one. And this is the rarest one. You don't really see this happen in depictions of interactions between men and women and between men and other men in TV shows, in movies, in books, in your family, perhaps. Certainly didn't happen in my family, where a woman truly desires to know a man's point of view, or a person truly desires to know a man's point of view, and all of the above is going on, right? Where they may or may not know what their point of view is yet. They may not be sure of how to voice it. They may not have a strong preference. They may have difficulties with verbal expression, and the woman or person doesn't hold it against the man, doesn't hold it against the young man. Oh, he should be able to tell me what he thinks and feels. This person who's functioning from the endearing agenda wouldn't think or say that, wouldn't flagellate and punish the young man or the older man with that point of view. And so this is really important to know which of these agendas might be consciously or unconsciously running, and which of these are actually something that you want to move toward. It's about building awareness. You need to know where you're coming from, and you need to know where they're coming from, because it may be that you're doing everything in your power, but they've had really tough situations before. And so I asked the men in my life these questions I'm going to tell you, and some really surprising things happened. And I invite you to ask some of these questions to the men that you love and care about, that you'd like to have a greater connection with in your life, and see what shows up. Remember the 3 ingredients that we talked about earlier in the episode that you need before you go and start these conversations, okay? So I asked exes. I called all of my exes, or messaged all of my exes, because some of them I didn't have their phone number anymore. I reached out to cousins, to my uncles, to my brother, to my dad, and I sat down with them and we talked at least for an hour each about the gift that they are in my life. And one of the questions I asked them was, so what was your first impression of me? Or what did you think when we first met? Maybe for my brother, because he's younger than me, like, what's your earliest memory that you have of me? And it was all over the board what they said. But it was for us to start in this place of like, hey, let's start at the beginning. Like, this conversation can be a new beginning for us. And it was really lovely to hear some things that I hadn't even considered before. Like, oh, I thought you were a bitch, or I thought you were really powerful, or I knew you were definitely somebody I needed to know. My dad said, from the moment you showed up, I knew my life was going to be different and that you were going to shake up the world. And I was a little scared of you. By the time you were 2, I was scared of you. And I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that my dad was scared of me. It's not a small thing to hear that, you know? I heard my brother talk about how I had his back and was an additional parent to him when we were growing up, and that I was somebody that he could always go to, and that he could talk to me about anything. And that means a lot, right? We're still very, very close, and I just freaking love him. And so that was one question I invite you to play around with. What was your first impression of me? What did you think when we first met? Or what's your earliest memory? And then I asked, so what have I added to your life? And some mentioned what my friend Derek that I talked about earlier said about insight. Some people was a safe space, a haven. Some people was, an adventure buddy. Some people was like, if I needed to get shaken up and get out of my head, I know that you'll do that. Someone was told me about, it's something like, how did they phrase it? It was like, if I need someone to call me out on my BS and my baloney, you'll do that because you're always really honest and forthright, which also means a lot to me. And then also that it mentioned things like, you help me see a different perspective, which is something that Derek had mentioned. But on top of that, it gives me hope. When I interact with you, it gives me hope that I'll be able to find a woman that I have a romantic connection with, because this person, I don't have a romantic connection, that I have a romantic connection, but that doesn't judge me and that receives all of me like you do. And I know that whatever happens, you are my girl. And this is a good friend of mine that we've been friends since we were like 18 years old. And he says, with every important relationship in my life, that there's always this moment where I have to explain, who is this girl, Siris? and I had no idea. And so he was saying, yeah, I have to tell them about us and our unique dynamic and what a gift you are to me. So then for each of the men, I say, so what do you think you've added to my life? What do you think you've added to my life? And except for like two of the men, and this was a bit heartbreaking and shocking to me at the time, and just showed me all the more how important it was for me to have these conversations with them. But for only about two of them could they actually come up with anything, and they were really having a hard time. They really didn't know what they had added to my life up until then and what a contribution they were to my life. And so I got to see these beautiful men that are such a gift to me struggle to acknowledge themselves, what they bring to the table, what is good and great and awesome about them, and they couldn't even think of it like how I do. I'm like, I have a lot of awesome. There's a buffet here. Which of all the awesome? I don't even think for most of them that they really got how awesome they are. So then I got to do this thing that I'm so grateful that I got a chance to do, and I got to tell them. And for some of them, I had to check in, and I saw what I mentioned earlier, that they were showing their receiving of it in a different way than women do. They were showing their vulnerability in a different way. The way that their bodies and their energy softened was different. The way that they responded back was different. I couldn't go in there expecting a certain response. I just couldn't. I wouldn't be honoring of them. And so I got to tell them. And from those who, I have the tissue ready, just in case, getting a little emotional here. From those who, conversations with them have saved my life, to me knowing that not all men were horrible, because I had this cache, this library of amazing men that I could point to and be like, yeah, this. And I can hear for some of you, you might be like, I don't have that. I don't have this library and this database of men where I've had positive experiences with. Most of my experiences have been negative or horrific. And I get that. And I've met women, and I've met non-binary people and genderqueer people where that's been the case. And I'm just going to remind you, if you haven't listened to the other episodes, I am a rape survivor. I am someone that was violated, not just by a random person. It wasn't a random person at all. It was a childhood friend that I'd known and then was dating. And someone I'd known since I was 5 years old that I entrusted everything to. And yet I didn't let that experience eclipse what I knew to be possible. And maybe over the course of listening to this episode, you may start to get a sense of what's possible beyond your experiences, whatever they may have been so far. There is more possible. There are good men out there that are willing to have your back, that if you give them a call, they'll be right there. And if we look at, again, our vulnerability, our hidden agendas, our limiting beliefs, where we may be getting in our own way, where we may be using these past reference points to look through those lenses instead of taking off those lenses and considering a different possibility, I wonder what we could create together. I wonder what space we could be together, you know? And so I'm so grateful that I got to have that conversation with the men in my life and continue to build on that. It was a beautiful platform for growth and rapport and connection and trust that was created then. And I wonder if you played around with these questions, what it would create for you. So it's time for our third break of the show. When we return, we will discuss how we can use these questions and these tools that I've mentioned in different scenarios. Okay, so you are listening to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, with myself, Siris, on the Inspired Choices Network. When we return, we will continue to discuss being a space of possibility with men. We'll be right back.
Most people haven't been taught how to listen and partner with their bodies in order to create lives that include clarity, pleasure, ease, and connection. Tuning in to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and resources on how to use your awareness of bodies and energy to your advantage. Siris is a family and child coach and therapeutic energy worker who will guide you to get clear and acknowledge what's brilliant, magical, and a gift about you. This is the Choosing a Different Future show with Siris. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Connect with Siris through her website, empoweringlightlanguage.com, or send an email to empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo on Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And today our show topic is being a space of possibility with men. Before the break, we are talking about these different hidden agendas that may be going on that may prevent us from having a space of possibility with men that actually creates the futures we truly like to have with them. And we also discuss this crazy, different, weird thing that I did to talk to the men in my life that I love and care for, from exes to family members to dear friends of mine, that gave me a lot of really great awareness about where men are coming from and how I can be the space I'd like to be with them, and for them to know that they're a gift to me and to the world, that the world is actually better with these men in them. Not all men, but yes, there are a lot more men that it's better that the world is with, that the better that the world has them in it than not. But what we flow energy and attention to, what we focus on, is what we get more of. So if we're focusing on all the men that are horrible and that are violators and that don't listen and don't care, well, I think we're creating that more and more of that. And I'm personally not choosing that, because I'd like a future of the men like the ones that I've interacted more times than not with, which has been men that are inspiring and caring and creative, and very loving. And so I want to go into how we can use the questions that I mentioned before the break and some of these other ways of being with men in different scenarios. So let's say you have family members that you would like to have a space of possibility with, a space of possibility where everyone is heard and acknowledged, that where all opinions are truly considered, where you have that endearing, that nurturing agenda that we mentioned earlier, and not the dismissive, elusive, or whatever that other one was right now. Okay, diluted. There we go. That's the other one. There's a lot of D's. And then I'd like us to consider, if we do have these family members that are, maybe we have some tricky interactions with, let's look at, well, what if we ask them, what do you think of me? And what do I add to your life? It's very telling what they might say, what they value in you. It might let you know what state they've been in past interactions with you and what state you've been with them in past interactions with them. It may give you some awareness as to how you may need to tweak your words. It may let you know what is and is not possible with them. Not everything is possible with every person, but with each dyad and each pairing of people, there is something uniquely possible, and it will hopefully shine a light on that for you so you have more clarity. I've had parents use these questions and learn how to be a space of possibility for the boys that they're raising, for the men that they're married to, for the uncles and grandparents that are a part of the whole family dynamic, to actually create more space and ease, to actually receive better from them, to be willing to talk to them in a way that they can hear, and for you to not rely on just the verbal, but also they said this, and then what's all the stuff underneath that isn't being said? And what if I didn't wait on that? What if I acknowledge, hey, I'm aware of this. I'm aware that their body's saying this. I'm aware that their energy is this right now. And how can I tweak my words and what I'm doing to honor me and them? It's not one or the other. It's honor me and them. I've had clients, if you are someone who is a therapist, an educator, anyone that's mediating between different spaces, parents who are working between different kids, this is a really key thing to develop this space of being a different possibility. Because how are we going to actually create the futures that we'd like to be in with men if we don't have a space of possibility that includes them? We're not going to wipe them off of the face of the planet. We're not all of a sudden going to be the Amazons. We're not going to all of a sudden, start having babies in a lab all the time, even though that's some of the science that's showing up right now. And yet their contribution is so much more than the reproductive. And yet I see them being reduced to that, just like I see so many other people reduce women to just their reproductive parts, and that's their only value. That's not the case for anybody. And it's really beyond mean and dishonoring to do that to somebody. So if you're somebody that is a connector and a therapist, an educator that is dealing with men, young men especially, please get these tools and play around with them. Please reach out to me for more tools, because this is super, super important to me, to the world, to what I get that all of us would like to see more of. This has been really powerful for my friendships, and my friends who now get, after these conversations that I had with them, that they're a gift. They're choosing different relationships. They have better partners now. They don't judge themselves for their quirks and idiosyncrasies as much. And that's beautiful, because a world that doesn't have all that judgment, that's the world I'd like to live in. Please, is that the world you'd like to live in? I hope so. I hope so, because judgment kills. And every time we're judging these men and we're judging ourselves with them and about them, our interactions with them, we're destroying possibility. And I'd like for all of us to have a space of possibility with ourselves, with men, with women, with everybody that we truly would like to have these connections with. So I hope you enjoyed our discussion so far. I hope you enjoy the questions a little bit, play around with them, let me know what it creates for you. This is a great way to build trust and rapport between couples, build confidence in kids, create a different future for all of us. And I hope you join us in our next episode, which is going beyond surviving when you're a survivor. And I'm going to read the description of that a little bit. And hopefully you'll enjoy this conversation. Share it with anybody that you know would benefit from it. This next episode is going to be going beyond surviving when you're a survivor. Are you a survivor or have overcome and something momentous? Have they told you that you shouldn't be happy, successful, or thrive given what happened? Working with people who have survived and chosen to create something different as their lives has been some of the most gratifying aspects of what I do. One thing that repeatedly comes up, no matter if we are moving beyond nasty breakups, chronic illness, rape, or trauma in other forms, is this idea that other people try to dictate who we are, what they think we're capable of, and try to limit what is possible as our life after these events. So no matter what someone has experienced, it doesn't have to define them, and yet they will tell you over and over again that this is your possible choices, that this is your identity now. So this is who you are. This is what they try to say. Are we going to let them control our mindsets, our lives, and the choices available to us? No. Let's show ourselves what we truly are capable of now and in the future. And join us for that next episode. It'll be next Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern US. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for listening to the Choosing a Different Future show. Siris returns Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain, and 7 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, keep choosing what will work for you and your body, your own unique way honoring what will work for you.